Hello there kids, today we are going to talk about M.D.A.S. Okay, so M.D.A.S basically means multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay, so we are going to group them into two. This will be our first group, which is multiplication and division, and our second group, which is addition and subtraction. Okay, so for the first group, no, we have this certain term that we use, that whichever comes first, no? As long as they're in the group, whichever comes first, that is what you're going to deal with first. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Ano nga bang ibig sabihin yan? Okay, so before we go to that, no, let me just explain you that M.D.A.S, or in advanced topic, higher grade, we call this as GEM-DAS actually. I have a video about that under the grade 5. So, but we're not going to make use of the G and E, instead only M.D.A.S. Okay. So this is actually a standard way of answering or computing a mathematical sentence, such as if we have 3 plus 4 times 2. Okay, so this is a basic mathematical equation or sentence. Most of the people would most likely answer this as doing 3 plus 4 first, which is now equivalent to 7, then multiply to 2, which will now finally give us an answer of 14. Okay, in this case, this is actually wrong. Okay, this is wrong. Kasi nga, you need to follow the standard way of solving, which is using the GEM-DAS rule. Okay. Asking yourself, in this given equation, mathematical equation, 3 plus 4 times 2, do you see any multiplication or division operation? Okay, which actually belongs to the first group, no? Kasi nga, that's the reason why we have two groups. The first group, which is multiplication and division, and the second group, which is the addition and subtraction. So first things first, ask yourself, do you see any multiplication or division sentence? In this case, obviously you have the multiplication sentence here, so which means you have to deal with 4 times 2 first. Okay, so 4 times 2 will now give you 8. And all you need to do now is just to rewrite the 3 plus. We now have 3 plus 8. Asking yourself again, do you still see any multiplication or division sentence here? Wala na. Only 3 plus 8. So which means you can now proceed to the second group, which is either to add or subtract, or both, depende. Okay, so in this case, you have 3 plus 8, which will now finally give us the answer of 11. Okay, so ganun ang pag-answer sa M.D.A.S. You need to take note of this rule. Okay, so M.D.A.S, where M.D. is grouped as 1, and whichever comes first. Ngayon, ano nga bang ibig kong sabihin dito? So as much as possible, I'll just erase the examples, no? Why do I need to erase the examples? So that you will be able to see or make use of our guide, which is yung, ito na nga, M.D.A.S, or the two groups, whichever comes first. What do you mean by whichever comes first? Ano nga bang ibig kong sabihin sa whichever comes first? So, if there is a multiplication division sentence at the same time, for example, 4 times 2 divided by 8. So, if you notice, we have the multiplication and the division signs here. And you might tell me, of course, Teacher Mark, you are going to do multiplication because M goes first or comes first. No, that is not the case. Kasi nga, like what I've said, the rule says whichever comes first. It's just that if you notice that our multiplication and division signs belong to the first group. They both belong to our first group. And since they belong to the first group, this rule will now be applied, whichever comes first. And since multiplication comes first in this case, you have to deal with multiplication first. which is 4 times 2. Okay? 4 times 2 will now give you 8. All you need to do now is to rewrite divided by 8. 8 divided by 8, since it is the only operation left, that will now give us an equivalent answer of 1. Okay. Teacher Mike, I don't get the whichever comes first part. Okay. I now change the given example. Okay, let's say we have 6 times 3 divided by 2. Using the same set of numbers, no? We are still going to make use of, separate lang natin. We are still going to make use of the numbers 6, 3, and 2. But this time, we are going to interchange their signs. 6 divided by 3 times 2. Okay, so if you notice, the arrangement of numbers are the same, 6, 3, and 2. It's just that our signs interchanged. First, we have multiplication and division here. Then we have division and multiplication here. So this is that part where whichever comes first rule applies. Okay, so in this case, since then again, checking both, we have multiplication and division in one sentence, which means since multiplication and division belongs to the first group, we should do whichever comes first, which is in this case, in example number 1, multiplication comes first, which means you need to deal with 6 times 3 first. 6 times 3 will give us 18. And rewriting divided by 2, 18 divided by 2, if you have memorized your multiplication table, kasi nga, it's just the opposite. What will you multiply with 2? That will give you 18. And in this case, 18 divided by 2 will give us 9. So that's our answer for this part. Now, doing number 2. Paano natin gawin ang number 2 ngayon? 6 divided by 3 times 2. So if you notice, again, we have your division and multiplication signs here. But in this case, for example, number 2, the division sentence comes first, which means you need to deal with that first, since they belong in the first group nga. Okay? Since they belong in the same group, you have to deal with whichever comes first. So 6 divided by 3 will give you 2, and rewriting times 2 will give you an answer of 4. So if you notice the difference in our answers, dito 9, dito 4. So interchanging the signs can basically change the answers. Okay? So example, let's say you have 4 minus 8 divided by 2. So in this case, you have 4 minus 8 divided by 2. Rewriting the term here or the clue here, such as M.D.A.S, M.D.A.S, knowing that this is multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. I'm just going to rewrite the M.D.A.S as our guide, and of course, to put the open close parenthesis to separate, no? Para alam lang natin that we have two groups and which one to do first. Okay. So 4 minus 8 divided by 2. Obviously, you have to deal with the multiplication or division, which is this one. Not dealing with the subtraction part because nga it comes second. Okay, so since division lang meron, so you have to deal with division first. 4, rewriting 4 minus and 8 divided by 2 is equivalent to 4. 4 minus 4 will give us 0. Okay, so what if we'll have 4 digits or numbers? Let's say we have 12 plus 3 times 2 divided by 6. Okay, then again, rule natin, M.D.A.S, M.D.A.S. You have to deal with these two first before doing the addition or subtraction, which means wag muna natin gawin yan. We have to deal the multiplication and division first. So, which comes first? It's the multiplication in this case. So, you have to deal with 3 times 2 first. So, 3 times 2 will give us 6. Rewriting 12 plus and divided by 6. So, that's 12 plus and divided by 6. Now, what do we have? 12 plus 6 divided by 6, you have addition and division. So obviously, you have to deal with division first because it belongs to the first group. So 6 divided by 6 will give us 1. Writing 12 plus, we'll now end up having 12 plus 1, which is in this case is 13. Okay, so that is how you deal with M.D.A.S. or M.D.A.S. Okay, so one more example. 15 minus 12 divided by 4 times 2. Okay, halos the same lang. If you observe, we have subtraction, you have division, and multiplication. Then again, as your guide, writing down M.D.A.S. This is our first group and our second group. Okay, erase ko lang muna yung signs natin. I mean yung pag-encircle sa signs. So if you notice, yun na nga, meron tayong subtraction, division, and multiplication. So you have to figure out which you are going to do first. Are you going to do multiplication first or division? So then again, like the rule says, whichever comes first, since multiplication and division belong in the same group, which means you have to deal with whichever comes first, which is in this case is division. So what we're going to do now, 12 divided by 4 will basically give us 3. And rewriting everything, we have 15 minus and times 2. Okay, then again, you have multiplication here, which means you have to deal with multiplication first. So you have 3 times 2 will give you 6. Rewriting 15 minus, so that's 15 minus 6. And 15 minus 6 will give us 9. Okay, so that's basically it. This is how you deal with basic M.D.A.S.